Welcome back, Giant Slayers, to Youth Online. I'm Pastor Lorenzo Cordero, and this right here is Faith Builders. And I just want to encourage you, if this is your first time, every Monday and Friday at 7 p.m., we post a video to help you build your faith. So stay connected, stay tuned, and I promise you that you do not want to miss them. And I'm going to do a continuation of what I spoke last week. But before I dive in, I just want to remind you that if you haven't went back to go look, Pastor David spoke an amazing word on the 4 walls of protection. So I encourage you, if you go back and listen, it'll be eye-opening and revelation to your life, that you'll begin to block out anything that the enemy has and is trying to throw at you. And so I'm just going to dive in. In Romans 12 verse 2, it says this: "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." And I want to focus on this right here. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We have to renew our mind daily. The renewing of your mind is not something that just happens at one time, but you have to do it continually, daily. And so what I spoke about last week was understanding that you're righteous. And we talked from James 1:19 and how acting out of your anger does not promote God's righteousness. And so what I'm going to talk about this time is that we have to be developed and yield to the Spirit of God. We have to yield to what He's trying to tell us. And a lot of times in our natural minds, and I want to say this, our natural minds are more developed than our spirit minds. But we have to continue to renew our mind so that our natural mind doesn't have any more say-so than our spirit mind. And so I wrote this down, and I want you to take notes. I wrote this down. We try to figure it out, then let God from the inside live it out. We try to figure it out, then let God from the inside live it out. Because if you live from the inside out, anything from the outside that's trying to get in can no longer hinder you, cannot affect you. But if you're living from the outside in, then you're swayed by everything that is happening. All what people are telling you, what the media is saying, what Instagram, Facebook, all that's going on around you. If you're living from the outside in, you begin to retain that information, allow it to hinder, and not allowing the Spirit of God to dwell in you to block out that thing. So we must learn to live from the inside out and not from the outside in. And so in order to do that, you must yield to the Spirit of God. You must yield to the Spirit of God. And I'm not sure if some of y'all are driving right now, and I'm pretty sure that you've seen a yield sign. See, a lot of times for us, we think that when we yield, it's supposed to slow down. But if you ever looked at it, a yield sign's red. A yield sign means to stop. It doesn't mean just to slow down. And for us, it's so much easier just to slow down than it is to make a complete stop. And so tying it with what we're talking right now, see, to renew your mind, so allowing what the outside is happening, you must stop allowing. And what you have to do is say, hold on, what does the Word of God say? What is He saying to me right now in this situation? We must stop to make sure that we hear what He's saying. And in James 1, verse 21 and 22, it says this: "So get rid of all uncleanness, the rampant outgrowth of wickedness, and in a gentle, modest spirit receive the welcome of the word, which was implanted and rooted in your hearts, contains the power to save your souls. But be doers of the word, obey the message, and not merely listeners to it, betraying yourself into deception by reasoning contrary to the truth." So I wrote this down. Being a doer of the word is not a momentary action, but a state of existence. Being a doer of the word is not a momentary action, it's a state of existence. See, just because something happens in your life, you don't begin to do the word because it happened. We must continually do the word so that when situations happen, it's just natural to us, and that we're not having to retrain our brain, retrain our spirit, but we're already ready and we're doing the word of God in those certain situations and times. See, being a doer of the word does not indicate your actions as much as it indicates your nature. Let me say that again. Being a doer of the word of God does not indicate your actions as much as it indicates your nature. See, your inside being should always be your doing. And never allow your being become from your doing. Does that make sense? So what I'm saying right now is anything that you do should not define who you are. But your spirit being, who God says you are, when you're renewed to the word of God, that man, that spirit man that He's placed, and that spirit man that He wants you to be, as you're renewing your mind to the word of God, that being is coming from your doing, and your doing is the word of God. So when you're doing the word of God, that's coming from your being, your inner man, your spirit man. So your being is no longer defined by what you do, but who you are and who's in you. See, I wrote this down in Romans 10 verse 12. It says, consequently, faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the word about Christ. So your faith, it says, faith comes from hearing and hearing the word of God. So in order for you to renew your mind, you must continually hear the word of God. You must continue to keep it in your ears, because that's how faith comes, from hearing. But I like what it says in James 2 verse 14 through 17. What good is it, my brethren, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save him? Supposedly a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but does not do anything about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by actions, it is dead. So faith that does not have corresponding actions, so that means you must be ready to do the word of God. We must be a doer of the word of God. And how do we become a doer of the word of God? Is that we have to renew our mind daily, and we have to keep the word of God in our ears so that we can know what he's telling us and how he wants us to respond in certain situations. And so I wrote this right here, and this is the last point I'm going to give you. Faith comes by hearing, but walking faith out comes by doing. So I just encourage you, continue to renew your mind to the word of God. Continue to renew your mind to the word of God, and allow the word of God to change the inner being, to change who your spirit, your natural mind is by your spirit man. Because the more you develop your spirit man, your natural man departs. There's nothing he can say, there's nothing that he can do to affect your decisions, because your decisions now align with the word of God. So I encourage you, continue to walk out your faith by doing the word of God. And I just want to thank you for joining us with Faith Builders. We love you, and we'll see you next time.